To me, house music is a hybrid of disco, R&B, and funk, sped up to about 118 to 120 beats per minute. A very friendly, dance floor friendly sound that is somewhat now internationally known and recognized as that 4 on the floor.
It's akin to gospel music in that it's great, it lifts you up, it makes you smile, it makes you happy, it makes you feel good. People that love it know it, and when they hear that boom, 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 and that's how I describe it, feel good music.
To me, house music is more of an environment than a genre, a amalgamation of different genres put into a specific environment.
With 2024 starting, we have recognized that house music has been happening here in Chicago for 40 years. The release of a single record by a DJ and producer, Jesse Saunders and Vince Lawrence, we have looked at this as the point of origin for the genre, for house music in general.
Because that music came out of black gay parties, black gay gathering. That was the music that we were listening to and we were playing.
Early house was emerging out of disco and then added to it electronica and the downbeat and the hi-hat. That melding of 70s disco into what would become a very modern, very contemporary music.
So few places in America, really in the world, where you can point to a certain location and say a whole genre of music was birthed right in this building, right? 206 South Jefferson is really a symbol of house music as sort of the mecca of where this all started.
The warehouse was the foundation of the sound of that hybrid of dance music in the funk and disco and R&B. So the connection for me to the warehouse is a very deep one. I went there before I opened Smartbar. Go late after my bartending shifts and my waiter shifts and take my friends to this great club that, you know, the dance floor was for everyone. And you would hear music that was unto itself.
All because it was one of the first black gay clubs of that sort, that magnitude in the mid-70s, you know, here in Chicago. I'm from New York, and when I moved here, it was rather boring in Chicago. My fraternity brothers, they had a social club and they were giving parties. That went on for a while until that was dissolved. I had another partner who was a German guy named Siegfried Schuh. He said, well, what are we going to do with all the stuff we got? We might as well try and open up something. And we saw this little Art Deco building, and it was for sale. And we were like, oh, let's check that out.
There was something really special about the warehouse's story and the narrative about all these different people that came together in this place just for over the course of 5 years that really changed music history and Chicago history.
We said, well, we don't have a DJ, we don't have sound equipment, what are we going to do here? So I had to fly back to New York and try and persuade my friends Larry the Band, T. Scott, whoever was willing to come out here and help me, but none of them were willing because I had been here prior to that, and they had asked me, how was your trip to Chicago? And I was like, horrible. So they was like, So Frankie Knuckles was available. I persuaded Frankie to come out here.
The architect of that sound was Frankie Knuckles.
Viewed as the Godfather of house, still to this day.
There was a sound that he was creating on that floor with series of turntables and reel-to-reels and sound effects. You knew it was the right party. You knew you were at the right party in town. It's a sound sculpture, and it was just something that was not easily recreated.
As a child, he would listen to his older sister's music collection. I don't know if that inspired him to, him and I never had that conversation of how he became a DJ, but we always talked about that he was a DJ.
Although he's from New York, but he made Chicago his home, He made the warehouse a legend as it is.
He would always take you on a story. Those of us who knew him really well, we could always kind of tell what kind of evening we were in for.
The technical knowledge of music and the spiritual knowledge of how to move people and how to heal people on a dance floor, it's something that I feel like we don't credit him with enough.
He was from a different era, from New York. He wasn't accustomed to the music at that time that was played here in Chicago. He brought his own style, his own artistic flavor to that music. He created a genre that people just couldn't resist.
He'd give me a cassette tape here and there and say, oh, listen to this when you get home. And a lot, that's where I found a lot of music that had not been pressed yet, Jamie Principle being one of them, which I believe was, again, one of the first house sounding or house tracks, but it had not been pressed yet, but it was actually on those tapes that I would hear. That was the origin of house for me.
A good DJ tells you a story, and there's some thought that goes into what they play, and how they blend it all well together, and how they lay it all out for you, and the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs and the in-betweens. I love for you to tell me a story and instead of letting me hear what I'm gonna hear on the radio.
The fact that Frankie was the first DJ to be recognized as a remix award through the Grammys. This was a time where, the remix work was plentiful for someone like Frankie. I think he was doing it in the club, and that's where I first began to hear his manipulation of a crossover, a sound system that was beautifully put together. You knew that the difference between like a regular bar disco and this was actually a club. One of the things that I remember that Frankie would do was play the I Have a Dream speech during a instrumental track, something I had never heard in any club or in any setting. That's inventive. There's a lot of ingenuity to that, there's intelligence to that, and a bit of history. That dance floor just lit up. I mean, people were like cheering and knew what was happening.
That music remains a place of sanctuary and solace, and that Frankie had the job in the 70s and 80s when crack was prolific, heroin was prolific, police violence and gang violence was kind of unbelievable, that he was creating this safe haven of love and peace for communities that needed it most. And I think he deserves to be celebrated among all the other greats of this important month.
I became friends with Frankie, and I told him about a club that I was planning to open. And I asked him if he would be the first DJ, and he accepted.
Lou, what you doing?
Hey, Caitlin, I'm looking for this stream everyone's talking about.
Fox Local?
Yeah.
Get me. App Store, download Fox Local, open it, pick Chicago, boom.
Oh, that was easy. Hey, Paris. Hey, I got this stream on my phone finally.
I'm on there.
Everyone's on this thing.
Now you can watch Paris on Politics anytime, anywhere.
Hey, Anita, I'm on Fox Local.
I know, Lou. I watch you on Bears Blitz on Fox Local.
Fox Local. This is big stuff.
Glad I could help.
The
The viewer in the morning really needs to have a good feeling for what it's going to be like for the rest of the day.
I've got 3 kids myself, so I set out their clothes Monday through Friday, which you can do too based on our 7-day forecast. The last thing that you want to have to think about is, what is my kid going to be wearing to school? What do I need in the morning?
Having grown up here, having spent about 30 years in this market predicting the weather, you not only get really familiar with the weather, but with the needs of your audience. And that's what it means to be the Weather Authority.
So people came from the north suburbs, the west suburbs, out of town, and it was a place where you could go and feel comfortable as a youth and dealing with other minorities even that you were not perhaps familiar with because of your upbringing or your geographical situation. It was more gay and black, but then a lot of Hispanics and a lot of Jewish kids, a lot, different minorities started coming. So they all got along, because they all enjoyed the music, and then they interchanged their culture there because there was a lot of kids who were into design and different things that they couldn't release in their own neighborhoods and what have you. So the Hispanic kids who came taught the other kids about their culture there. It was a place that they could be comfortable at. Sometimes how you go into a place and there's other minorities there and you're the lesser minority and you feel a little like, am I gonna be all right? And that was not the case. And what was really funny to me was the parents, because that was really a joke to me, because, if your daughter was there, or your son, snuck out the house at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and then somebody told him you were there, and you would come down there, like, I know my daughter's in here, I know Peggy's in here somewhere, this is where she goes. But to a parent, it was like overwhelming because of all the youth there, and the music was a little loud for them.
Because I was a devotee of the Warehouse and would visit Frankie and Robert and Frederck on a regular basis, I became friends with Frankie, and I told him about a club that I was planning to open, and I asked him if he would be the first DJ, and he accepted. He was in between Warehouse and Power Plant at that time, so this is July of '82. But it was a personal request. It was the first time I really saw a real DJ fee as well. I was like, oh, okay, this is what the fee is for the evening. But he was great that night. He really opened up. North side and south side sort of coming together. I think that's a really important aspect of, he had his own following, but there were already people that knew about Smartbar and knew what I was planning to do. So he had that ability to mix the Clash and Talking Heads and the B-52s, like Kraftwerk and New Order, and the Police into all of the house sort of built-in tracks. There was a whole blend of what music at that time meant. It wasn't just specific, it was of what happened on the dance floor. There was this great blend, and that was another thing about Frankie's ability to mix and actually create sort of soundscapes.
Smartbar is indebted to the history and always wants to focus on the history of house, but also look to the future. And we like to bring that kind of mentality to how we program our nights as well. Having an understanding of the history of house music, but also looking to the future. There's a night called Queen here, which kind of attempts to preserve that ethos of the early days of house music.
Well, knock wood. We feel that Smartbar continues to surprise and to satisfy. We have some great resident DJs that are in place, some great club nights that are in place, always being tweaked, always being worked on to make sure that we're delivering a great environment, a safe environment, a great sound system, a staff that's happy to be on the hospitality side. One thing about the Smartbar that I feel that is also super important is that the dance floor doesn't discriminate. Chicago is a very divisive city and town, but when you get on the dance floor in Smartbar, you're going to feel that you're home, and that home and house are very intertwined, and I feel that's important. We keep the radar nice and clear so that when it begins to take place, whether it's in a small venue here in Chicago or a small bar in Chicago, there might be a DJ that's on their way up. We hope to recognize that young talent, give them a space here, maybe possibly in a supporting role. There's several DJs that we're kind of working with right now that keep that fresh and keep that exciting and keep that unification between the community as well as the venue. And that's that difference that I think that we hopefully serve well. I think that's been our notion and our mission since 1982. I think the one mission that we have is to have a beautiful crowd come and enjoy great house music here at Smartbar, where the dance floor does not discriminate.
We found out that the building had been sold. It had been advertised for redevelopment, which in the West Loop had given us some concern. We were afraid that the building might be torn down.
Weather Authority Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls.
It's our job to prepare you, the viewer. There's impactful weather systems that are heading our way.
Weeknights at 5 and 9 on Fox 32 Chicago. This weekend, kick back and catch up with Fox 32 on Fox Local. Recap the week's must-know news.
This weekend, you're going to be dealing with a lot of closures downtown.
Relive Fox 32's best.
He's not just coming at you, he's coming at you with something that he just caught.
Plus the latest political and sports buzz.
Is this a role that you like, kind of going on the attack?
There's plenty of excitement here. Watch live or anytime on demand. Weekends at Fox 32 on Fox Local. Download now on these streaming services.
The social media role of what we do here is really vital.
My favorite platforms to be able to connect to the viewer is really Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. I try daily to post updates. I really think Instagram is helpful. We can send out stories that are up to date.
We have to meet our viewers where they are, across all platforms, across all media.
Using every available tool to get important weather information to you. That's what it means to be the Weather Authority.
The Frankie Knuckles collection is, it's kind of an amazing story. We had just opened the Stony Island Arts Bank, and I got this call out of the blue from this guy, Freddie. And so Frederck called and said, Frankie passed, as you know, and we would really like for his things to have a home. And it became very clear that Frankie's personal music collection was something that needed to be cared for and needed to be shared with the world.
Me and my friends, it's our job so that we impart the knowledge and the love of house music to our kids, the young people that are exposed to me and I have a connection with, and let them know what this is, what it's all about, because the cycle of life, we need to pass it on.
I think it's so much easier to tell a story when you have the physical place that people can go to. 206 South Jefferson was a mecca. It was kind of the place that if you loved house music, if you were a house head, you were drawn to that place and you wanted to be there in the space where it was created. So in about December of 2022, we found out that the building had been sold. It had been advertised for redevelopment, which in the West Loop had given us some concern. We were afraid that the building might be torn down. And we knew that the building's history as a place of house music history, overall music history, Black history, LGBTQ history, we knew that it was really just too important to lose. So in March of 2023, we started a campaign which began with listing it as one of Chicago's 7 most endangered buildings. And the response was so massive. For the first day, there was a lot of people in Chicago that were very interested in finding out how they could save the building and what could be done. By the end of the week, it was pretty much a global phenomenon. People all over the world wanted to know about how they could save the building. So within about a month or so, they had started the landmarking process. And by June of 2023, the warehouse was an official Chicago landmark. So, it was a big celebration for everybody, not just in Chicago, but around the world. They were shocked. They were like, that building, that's where house music was created. I grew up listening to house. I didn't know about this. I think it just goes to show that there's incredible recent history right under our nose everywhere. And so I think that the warehouse is a really great symbol of that. And I hope it encourages people to look around more and think about, what kind of history is just right next to them.
I just think it's an institution that's well deserving of its landmark status of today. It's the only Black gay club of its kind in the city, or maybe in the country.
I think the main thing for me with house music is that I'm still a fan. I still buy records, I go to Gramophone, buy my records. I'm very fortunate to have great people that work here. Some of the DJs like Derek Carter or DJ Heather, Lady D, Darlene Jackson. Just last night, Honey Dijon was on stage with Madonna at the United Center. And again, that is a Chicago house DJ being recognized in a national tour. I find that amazing, I find that wonderful, and I feel that it should be celebrated.
I've been having a conversation recently with people about, could a place like the Warehouse exist now? It would be so different. It would have so many limitations to it. A number of things. It would be so difficult to do right now.
I don't know what Chicago would be like today if it wasn't for the Warehouse in terms of certain people, a lot of our youth lives, because it directed a lot of their lives in terms of not being in the street, not being into some negative activities, throughout the city.
House music was the emancipation space for not only people of color, but the queer community, the trans community, and that as those communities were emerging and finding each other and building a kind of safe space for themselves, the music was the kind of shroud that protected them. And I feel so grateful that Frankie was able to not only amplify the right that we have to be free, but he was able to do it in such a sophisticated way that built networks of unbreakable communities.
And to hear the music and to hear that one song and then the whole crowd just in one unison, you're like, wow, this is house music.
Fox Local, your smart TV source for streaming Fox 32 News. No antenna, no subscriptions. Good Day Chicago, the news at 9, and more.
Thanks for waking up with us on Good Day Chicago at 7.
Severe weather coverage, special events, live and unfiltered.
We do still have that tornado warning in effect.
And Fox 32 favorites on demand.
Is this a role that you like, kind of going on the attack?
This is like the trade of the century that we're going to continue to talk about.
Fox 32 on Fox Local. Download now on all major streaming platforms.
The viewer in the morning really needs to have a good feeling for what it's going to be like for the rest of the day.
I've got 3 kids myself, so I set out their clothes Monday through Friday, which you can do too based on our 7-day forecast. The last thing that you want to have to think about is what is my kid going to be wearing to school? What do I need in the morning?
Having grown up here, having spent about 30 years in this market predicting the weather, you not only get really familiar with the weather, but with the needs of your audience. And that's what it means to be the Weather Authority.
Lou, what you doing?
Hey, Caitlin, I'm looking for this stream everyone's talking about.
Fox Local?
Yeah.
Get me. App Store, download Fox Local, open it, pick Chicago, boom.
Oh, that was easy. Hey, Paris. Hey, I got this stream on my phone finally.
I'm on there.
Everyone's on this thing.
Now you can watch Paris on Politics anytime, anywhere.
Hey, Anita, I'm on Fox Local.
I know, Lou. I watch you on Bears Blitz on Fox Local.
Fox Local. This is big stuff.
Glad I could help.